1, we're live. And we're double live. Hello! Rebecca Steinhaus here with Remax Services, and of course, Craig Seltzer for our cross-country conversations.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing?
Good, good.
We also have a special guest here, my little brother, Samuel,
Hello.
aka Sammy Poo.
That's
And
It's a military name.
Sammy Poo.
no.
So Sam, explain why you're here today.
So I've recently gotten out of the military within the past 2 months, and I'm curious about some extra benefits, including the VA loan. And I know that this man right here is the person to talk to. So
Yes.
just trying to learn some more information.
Craig Seltzer would be your person.
Honor and a privilege to help.
Thank you.
So I believe the format we were going to do. There goes my head.
Yeah, we gotta try to stay in frame here. We have two recordings.
Okay, we're
Okay.
good now.
You good?
So,
That's a good one.
introduction to VA mortgages. So specifically, the VA mortgage is available to anyone that served honorably for 4 years, which you did, active military, veterans of active war, people that were in the reserves, National Guard for 6 years. If they were deployed, they become active. Surviving spouse of
Really?
of veterans are eligible as well. And we'll talk about specifics, but I do always stress to people that have been in the military to make sure that they have the amount of entitlements that they need in order to get the loan. The loan has some huge benefits. We'll talk about them specifically. The VA loan is an underutilized product. It's a very small segment of the marketplace, and there's tons of people that were in the military.
We were even just saying about people on the street that are veterans, and Sam goes, "Yeah, they don't realize how many benefits they have out there."
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits for veterans out there. The VA loan is just an underserved market.
Why do you think people don't use it as much?
I think there's a lot of there's a lack of information. There's a lack of education on it. It used to be a very hard loan to get, and that has since changed, which I'll explain. And also locally, unfortunately, a lot of sellers don't look favorably upon VA lending,
Why?
which is kind of unfortunate. There's sort of a misconception on two fronts. One is that if you're not putting money down on the house, that somehow you can't afford the house. And so if someone else is putting down maybe 20% and you're putting down no money, they may lean towards the 20% down option because they feel like it's a stronger offer.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we do on our side is proactively call listing agents and try to convey to them that that's just not the case, and try to educate them on how our process for a VA loan is even easier than a process for any other loan. I think it's the easiest loan to get from beginning to end.
Really? Yeah.
It's the easiest to qualify for. It's the most liberal when it comes to credit and debt to income ratio, very forgiving. They're trying to lend veterans money.
Do you know what debt to income ratio is?
Not 100%. No.
He is like
No, it's okay.
we have to go baby steps with him.
Okay.
He's 22, doesn't know anything.
You don't
I
need to know
try
how
to
to-
teach him real estate, but
You don't necessarily need to know how to qualify for it, but generally, all loans are qualified off of someone's debt versus their income,
Okay.
or the debt to income ratio.
Yeah.
And so the VA goes a step further and doesn't really focus on that so much as residual income, which is kind of cool because they say, okay, if you make a certain amount of money, net of your expenses, they have a standard chart of, in different areas of the country, how much discretionary money you should have based on your income level and based on your household size.
Okay.
And if you pass that residual income, even if the debt to income ratio is very high, you can still get the loan.
Yeah.
And so they make it very easy to get these loans, so long as someone originating the loan is competent and knows how to work the guidelines. You know? And also a lot of lenders adopt their own overlays to what the VA allows. And we talked about that in previous videos before, where there goes my head again.
like the
I'm
lighting
back.
on this one is going out a little bit.
So just like I'm always talking about why it's important to go to a lender versus a bank, the VA is very liberal. But if you go to a bank that is not as understanding or liberal, they may add their own policies above and beyond what the VA allows. So someone in theory could go to a bank, get denied for a VA loan, come to us and get approved for the same loan.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Sam even asked when he got here, was like, so does Craig work for the bank? Like, no, Craig's a lender. He coordinates everything with the banks.
So we lend our own money, and then we usually sell off servicing to a bank. But we underwrite to our own guidelines, so we don't rely on someone else to make the decisions.
So what would be, other than obviously usually it being easier to get the VA loan through a lender, what are some other benefits using a lender compared to a bank?
Service-wise, price-wise. I mean, you go to a bank for a loan, it's generally a 45-day process. With us, it could be a couple of weeks. And where that's important is, I think my record was 8 days. I did one in 8 days for both on a VA,
Really?
on a big VA loan. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
That story is
Specifically
crazy
VA,
actually because those people bought a place for, let's say, $700,000 or $800,000, got denied, came to me, and they never even asked the question if he had VA benefits. They were trying to take him down a complete different path. I realized the guy had VA benefits, and we were
So
able
it just
to go
like came
that
up
route.
in conversation.
I asked the question because it
Yeah.
was the son was handling the loan for his 90-something-year-old father. The 90-something-year-old father had VA benefits. The son was also in the military, and he mentioned it to me, and I asked him, hey, was your dad in the military? He said, yes. And we figured out a way to go that route and save the loan.
That's incredible.
Hey,
Yeah, so, and we saved, and the loan was better for him than the other one
Yeah.
that he got denied for, so everything happens for a reason.
Mm.
It's important with us, the timing aspect, because if you're competing against a bigger down payment conventional mortgage with a VA, one of the I guess arguments against accepting a VA offer will be somehow it's going to take longer, right? So if our speed on the VA loan is just as fast, if not faster, that's one less objection for a seller.
Yeah.
And I always think it's important on a VA transaction, to let the sellers know that you're a veteran. If there's an opportunity for them to meet face to face, I mean, it's kind of sad in this day and age that you would have to like sell your service to someone to get them to accept the deal. But I think that it helps for them. It may not win the deal, but it's going to help on a lot of transactions if the realtors bring the veteran and their families to the home or the veteran to the home. I know if I was a seller and I had a family with a veteran that served,
yeah,
I would want to accept their offer.
yeah,
Not everyone thinks like that, but I think more.
yeah, like that, like.
Yeah.
So.
Is it like score?
Oh yeah.
So we got some.
Yeah.
I like when the likes and the
think-
laughs go up.
And so a lot of what we do is just educate the list agent on our process and why they should accept the offer versus
It's
others.
interesting that some sellers are like, oh, they're not putting money down,
Look,
but like
it's a business and they're
they
looking.
serve your country. Like,
I know, and there's some misinformation out there that somehow it's going to be more expensive for them because there are certain costs the veteran's not allowed to pay.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that falls back on the seller side. Those costs are minimal. Most lenders that know what they're doing know what they can charge and what
Right.
they can't charge. Most title companies that serve veterans know what they can charge and what they can't charge, because we're not looking to kibosh a deal either and put all kinds of costs on the seller side that are going to make it not get accepted.
right.
So again, it goes back to knowing your lender needs to know the product,
Yeah.
and the title company that you're working with needs to know the product. I know corporate title closes them all the time, but
Yeah.
they know how to do it.
They may not know.
They're not educated enough to know how to navigate through that. They're certainly not getting on the phone with sellers and listing agents
Yeah.
to like explain the deal, move the deals faster
Right.
to compete. You're at a disadvantage. I want to talk about, and I'm sorry, did I answer your question? Right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about the benefit of the VA loan versus other products.
Yeah,
That
that's
makes-
definitely
yeah,
one of the
that's-
questions.
Yeah.
Because I was also curious, like, what if our uncle, he was also in the Army, and I helped him use his VA loan for the first time in his life.
Mhm.
And he's bought plenty of other houses before that,
Mhm.
never used his loan. And
Yeah.
we were like, wait, wait.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. To get a VA loan, first and foremost, you've got to get a certificate of eligibility from the VA.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Take
short,
notes.
the VAC, it's the COE. If you've served recently, a lot of times a lender can just pull it online through the VA system.
Mhm.
A lot of times, like for people who've been out of the military for a long time, they need to submit their DD-214 to the VA,
Yeah.
which is their discharge paperwork, and there's a point system, and then if they're eligible, they get the certificate of eligibility.
Mhm.
with that certificate of eligibility, it's going to spell out your entitlements, and your entitlements define how much money you can borrow. Okay, so
So like that's your pre-qual.
it's not the pre-approval for the mortgage. It just tells the lender that you can go the VA route.
Oh, okay.
You know, I just had a situation where someone told me that they had VA benefits. They've been pre-approved somewhere. I've had this multiple times over the years, but I just had one a couple weeks ago where it turns out the guy was in the reserves for 5 years and 9 months. That's
And
not
you
6
be there
years.
6 years.
So he didn't have the points to get the VA loan. So we had to go conventional. So it's always a good idea to get the certificate. I was just telling Sam a funny story. A guy who, again, was pre-approved somewhere else, came to us to get a VA loan. Can't pull the VA certificate of eligibility. Talked to the VA. Turns out the VA had him marked as dead for the last 20 years.
Oh yeah.
He is not dead. So it's very much alive. And so right
So
now,
funny.
if there's a 30-day delay just to get the VA to update his paperwork. So had he just gone to contract, think about what that would have caused. You know, that would have been a big problem.
You can't get on title. You're dead.
So he would have tried. It would have been a mess.
That's so funny.
And it would have put the seller out because they would have accepted a deal that wouldn't have closed on time.
Oh my God, that'd be horrible.
So you got to get the certificate of eligibility up front. So loan size wise, actually, I'm jumping around. You get the certificate of eligibility, and then that tells us that you can actually get a mortgage. The reason you would want to get a VA mortgage is you can do 100% financing with no private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance is when you put down when you don't put down 20% on a mortgage, it's a fee that you pay to the private mortgage insurance company that protects a lender against default on that loan. It's referred to as PMI. Okay, so
So if you're not paying like enough down,
correct.
they're like,
So
how do we know you're really gonna pay your mortgage?
if you're doing a minimum down payment loan,
Yeah.
it costs more money because the loans are risk-based pricing. So a VA loan, you get 100% financing, 30-year fixed loan or 15-year fixed loan. Most of them are 30 at below market rates. The rates tend to be like a quarter
Oh,
lower,
really?
sometimes even a half a point lower than a normal loan with no PMI whatsoever.
That's incredible.
So you can borrow more for less, or you can just borrow the same amount of money for less money. So
Right.
it's easier to qualify because of that residual income, because the payments are going to be lower on the same amount of money, right? So they make it easier for people to get qualified. So when there's VA benefits, I always tell people to take them because you'll get a much better loan, right? So a lot of people do that. If you have any service-related disability, the only rub on the VA, they don't have monthly PMI, but they do have an upfront fee that they finance in the loan. So if you're doing 100% financing, it's 2.15%. So instead of borrowing, say, 200,000, you borrow 200,000 plus 2.15%. Whatever that math is, 4,000 something, 4,300 something like that. Other than that, if you have a service-related disability, you should be exempt from that funding.
Okay.
So if you have VA disability,
And that's a disability of any rating from
I
0
believe it's
to
over.
100%.
I think it's over 10%.
Okay.
I'm not positive. It's either 10 or 30. But when you get the certificate of eligibility, it tells you if you're exempt or not from funding.
Yeah.
Right on it. So that's how we know.
Okay.
Okay. So saves even more money, which is another benefit for people that have served. Interesting fact about the VA is the VA really doesn't have a maximum loan amount. So,
I was reading somewhere before this that it was like 435.
so what happens is you can do up to $453,100 with no money down.
Numbers like 453, not 435.
That's it's the Fannie Mae conventional loan limit,
But that's with no money down.
no money down.
See, I ran into an issue. Back to when I was helping my uncle last summer, the listing agent was like, he's not putting any down. I'm like, no, it's a VA. He's like, well, you still need to put some down as a promise, like
So
show
what-
that there's money.
So generally what you do, you still put down an earnest money deposit.
That's, yeah.
So you can't tie up a house with 100% financing and no deposit.
Yeah. So you still have to
You
put
know,
down like a few thousand.
You still got to put something up to be vested. And anyways, that money will go towards closing costs. So you put in whatever you're comfortable to hold the deal, and then that money gets deducted off the bottom line at closing. If let's say
So
you
it's
put up,
really like you're putting up your own credit
correct.
to go
Yeah,
towards
that's
closing
right.
costs because. So can closing costs like go into your VA loan?
The closing costs could only be built in through the rate or a seller credit.
Got it.
There's nowhere to put the cost if you're doing 100% financing.
No, I'm staying alone.
So like, if you're doing a $200,000 mortgage on a $200,000 price, and the costs are another $6,000,
Mhm.
you're capped at 100% of the price. There's nowhere to put that extra $6,000.
Yeah.
Right.
So you either need to get a credit from the seller, the buyer needs to pay it, or we can give a higher rate to credit back some of that.
Okay.
It's one of those.
Gotcha.
So in that example, let's say the seller said, I'll accept your deal, but you need to put up a $20,000 escrow deposit to hold the property.
Mhm.
And let's say you had that money. You put $20,000 into the earnest money at the title company, and then at the end of the transaction, 14,000 of your 20 would come back to you because the costs are only 6.
Right.
Right? So you're really just moving money around to secure the deal. So
Gotcha.
it's a tough sell when you're doing a no money down loan and you're also only putting up like $1,000 earnest money.
Yeah.
So, it's no matter how good the story or how compassionate
Yeah.
people are, if they have another deal where the people are more, the problem with it is,
They like a cash deal.
if you're only putting $1,000 up, you
Yeah.
don't think twice about walking away. Most people,
Yeah.
another house pops up, or you don't love the inspection, or you just get cold feet. It's not going to really
Right.
hold someone to the deal, and that's what
Right.
the seller's planning their life around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the VA 100% financing up to 453,100, above 453,100, 25 cents of every dollar has to be brought in.
Interesting.
So, theory, if the purchase price were 553,100, they'd need 25,000 down payment. So you can finance the other 75%.
Huh.
So, the example I gave with Brian's deal that we saved, like a 750 purchase price. So we did a max VA loan. We got the guy more money on a VA loan at a better rate than the loan he had got denied for.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It came to me as actually an investment property loan for the son buying it for the dad. I realized the dad had VA benefits, and we got the dad a max VA loan qualified for it.
So they originally, the dad didn't even think he would qualify for them.
Didn't even think
That's
of it.
so
Because he
interesting.
went to USAA,
Yeah.
and when you go to USAA, you fill something out online, and it spits out a pre-approval. And the people that tell you that are processing your loan just gather paperwork.
Yeah.
They're not thinking of anything else. They're
You could
just
use USAA for like your home insurance.
for home insurance,
Yeah.
sure. Car insurance, it's just not for me.
Right.
There's no one there that's going to counsel anybody.
Yeah.
They're not thinking outside the box, So
Yeah.
in that situation, it never should have got to that point. So you can. I've done $1 million VA loans. I've done.
That's crazy.
Sometimes when people come to us for jumbo mortgages, a lot of times I always ask, do you have VA benefits? I've done a $1 million. I've done multiple, almost $1 million VA loans before. People who didn't necessarily ask me for VA loans in the first
So-
place. They get more money. They get better rates.
Is it like this? So since you like technically don't have to put like a certain percentage down,
Mhm.
and somebody's once they're out of the Navy, they're like, let's go buy $1 million house. Like, what's stopping them?
I mean, they still have to qualify for the loan. It's not based on just their intelligence. Like they
So
still have
that would still be something that has to do with your credit.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
credit,
Yeah.
income.
Yeah. They're like, I'm gonna go buy a nice house on the beach. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they still, good point. Good question.
Right?
Yeah. So yeah, they still have to qualify for the mortgage. They still have to pass the residual income. They still have to have the credit. They still have to have the income.
Okay, like so you,
They still have to have the
you need
down
to you
payment.
need a job.
Right.
No, what
Still
if
got-
you were somebody who does have bad credit?
Right. So the VA actually doesn't have credit requirements. So there's a couple ways you can underwrite a VA loan. It's probably way more than anyone else cares about. But generally you run the loan through an automated underwriting system, and it tells you if it works or not.
Uh-huh.
When the credit's real bad, you won't get an online approval.
You have to,
But we, cross country, will manually underwrite VA loans, which means we use a little more common sense. So I'll give you an example. I had an 80-year-old disabled vet, doesn't use any credit. He's on fixed income. His only credit was like a medical collection.
Mm.
Guy's a disabled vet, 80 years old. He's owned houses in the past, and he wants to do 100% financing on like a small house. But the guy has guaranteed fixed income. His residual income was really low. His credit score was like a 530, 535, something like that. We were able to approve him on a manually underwritten loan because the loan just made sense. The guy, we didn't put a lot of weight on his credit because he just doesn't use credit.
Yeah.
That's, and
Right.
most loans you can't think like that because most loans don't allow for you to think like that. Most loans have an automated underwriting component,
Mhm.
and you can't work around it. On a VA loan, you can use common sense. So if we want to do the loan, we generally can. It has to make sense. This guy had guaranteed income from the government. He had 2 streams of it. He had a VA disability, and he also had Social Security. He had decent savings.
That's incredible
So-
that they leave room for you to like work around
They do.
certain people's
Which they
situations.
And
Don't normally
sometimes
do.
there's
Yeah.
other situations where, if there's some stuff on credit, maybe someone will put down a little bit more money. They don't want to do 100%, and we can use that as a compensating factor to do the loan.
Mm.
We do try everything we can to make those loans work.
Yeah.
We want to help as many vets as we can. Cross Country as a company is very veteran friendly. And we're not the only one. There's a lot of organizations like
Right.
that, but I firsthand seen us make decisions on loans that other people turned down. That
That's awesome.
it was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good. It feels good when it happens.
Yeah.
So, there's not really a minimum credit score so much as the deal has to make sense. It has to pass the residual income. We have to have a reason to make the loan besides from just being a veteran. Because
Yeah.
we're lending out a lot of money.
Yeah.
We have to be pretty sure it's going to pay back if it got bad credit. So if the bad credit is because of that example where the guy just doesn't have credit, it's a little easier to make that case than someone who's like never paid anything on time, and that's why they have bad credit.
Yeah.
Right? But the VA is pretty forgiving for people that also had like past challenges, maybe foreclosures, bankruptcy, short sales. They tend to be more understanding and allow you to get a loan quicker. But yeah, so the VA is generally the most, give you the word liberal, it's like the most liberal with qualifying people's income, people's credit,
Mostly
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cooperative.
most like that.
That's
Other
incredible.
synonyms.
And you can do pretty big loans. I mean, you can do, there is some nuance to it. Again, I'll spare you like the details, but like the VA underwriting is different than any other loan. So they have some of their own rules versus say like conventional or FHA when it comes to income
Right.
and like a lot of times people try to buy other houses and then rent out their current house, and the VA looks at that kind of funny, nuanced stuff, but like
That's what I was wondering. Does the VA loan have to be your primary?
it does.
Okay.
You can get a second one
Uh-huh.
if you have enough entitlements for it. So like let's say you own a property with a VA loan on it and then you're relocated, legitimate reason to move,
Yeah.
and it would be punitive for you to maybe sell that property, so you're going to rent it out. The VA will allow you to get a second one if you qualify.
But it's not like you get in the military, you want to be an ambassador. Like you can't.
Can't use it for that.
Makes sense.
Can't use it for that. Yeah, a lot of times a good one too is
Oh no, that's our uncle. Hey, Uncle Seth, what's up?
Oh, hello.
Hello.
is that the one we were just talking about?
Yeah. He said, how much was there? He said, how much was there that we didn't know when we did his? So he had a different mortgage person. His was about a year ago before I even kind of knew you. But I think mostly what we're saying is pretty much along the lines of when you bought a house, Uncle Seth. You still had to put put like $5,000 down. He got his loan pretty fast. If you have any other questions, just write it in. We'll answer them. for you. But yeah, I think everything we're saying, he had that information. I don't think there was anything.
The rules haven't really changed
Yeah.
on the VA, but again, just like with any type of loan, and specifically about the VA, if the person that you deal with doesn't know all those rules,
Yeah.
they may miss something.
Yeah.
The most common thing I see with the VA, the most common mistakes I see made with the VA are lenders don't check the eligibility. And so I had another one.
That died? That didn't die?
I had a living person,
Okay.
both on paper and in reality, where my realtor that I was working with did not want to, didn't want to accept an offer because they were pre-approved by Quicken Loans. And so he asked the buyer to talk to me as a veteran. Turned out Quicken Loans didn't realize that they were already servicing another house for the guy with a VA loan. So like one side of Quicken Loans didn't know what the other side of Quicken Loans was doing.
Interesting.
So I look at the guy's credit. he wants like a $400,000 VA loan. He's already got a $400,000 VA loan. There's not enough entitlements to do both. He has no intent of selling that house. So we actually had to, so like that's just Quicken not paying attention. They have the same credit
They're all
report.
online. You don't talk to anyone with Quicken either.
No.
It's all.
So we wound up having to refinance his investment property now out of the VA into a conventional loan so he can rent that place out and then get a VA loan on the new one.
Okay.
Interesting.
Because it was that much better for him to do that.
So basically you can use a VA loan more than once though.
Yes, good question.
People in the Navy should get less. He said he just tuned in. Please be more specific.
Who's
What's that?
What do you say?
People in the Navy
He's making a joke.
should
He's
get
talking
less.
trash.
He's
Yeah,
making a joke.
yeah. We're not surprised.
So yes, you can. Get a second-
Oh, people in the Navy should get less, like as opposed to the Army, because he's an
Yes.
Army guy. Okay, haha. You know me.
It took her a while.
Yeah, like everything else.
You can get a second VA loan if you are paying a funding fee. So if you don't have a VA related disability, the only difference is that the funding fee is more expensive this subsequent use.
Okay.
That's the only difference. You get the same interest rates, just the funding fee is a little higher. That's it.
Interesting.
But you can do it. I mean, I've had people that I've done 3-4 VA loans for over the years.
That's incredible.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because I know one of the biggest rumors that I've always heard is you only get one chance to use your VA loan, and then I guess that's
Incorrect.
yeah.
Correct.
Again, there's just a lot about info floating out there, you know.
So I thought it was a great idea to bring him in.
And one of the biggest issues with being
What else did you hear?
pre-veteran, there's just a lot of rumors. One of the biggest issues about being continuously active duty is that you don't really get to learn a lot about your VA benefits because a lot of people, while still being active duty, still don't really know the full information about it.
It's
So
interesting that they don't have like classes.
No, they do. It's called, they have the TAPS class, so that way they can teach you as much. But again, sometimes the TAPS class can get rushed. Sometimes things like that happen. So it's really important to get out and actually talk to either the actual VA or somebody who's very knowledgeable about these things and can give you really good information to actually help you through the process.
Yeah, the
Like you
loan.
said.
Yeah. About all the other benefits for sure. The VA loan information. I mean, it's like anything else. Unless you're actually looking to buy a house, you don't necessarily want to sit there or pay attention to how to use a VA loan. So most of the time, it's like, okay, you get an idea, and then you start looking for information.
Exactly.
I've had a lot of people who call the VA about their VA, and the VA literally refers them to a lender. And then these people incorrectly think that they're working with the VA because they just got referred to USAA or maybe.
Yeah.
So to get the right information about your VA loan, you need to speak with a lender who handles a lot of VA transactions.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And there's good ones out there. The VA, you can call the VA to find out if you have the eligibility to get your certificate of eligibility. But they're not going to teach you the ins and outs of how to qualify because they don't do that.
Can you also get your letter of eligibility through ebenefits.com?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
good
where
to know.
we go on there a lot to get it. You can get it yourself as well. You just being recently out, you should be able to pull your resume.
Yeah.
It's a great benefit. And you should know, you're just out of the military, you're most likely either looking for or have a new job lined up at some point. When you're out, if you get a new job, we can use that income right away. If it's a reliable income stream, like if you work for a company right out of the military, we can use that right away.
So, if you're a recent college, this is going to start college at Embry-Riddle next week. If you're a recent college grad, you can use those college. We say this last time, you can use credits as like if you're
in school,
in
like
school and, like,
housing allowance, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When in school, if you're not in
Yeah,
school,
that's what I was actually about to ask. It's
I
like
think
while
it's
using
called BHS, branch housing. There's a code for it. I've seen it on my I'm trying to find, but there's if you have a housing allowance while you're in school, you can use it while you're not in school. You can't.
So even if you're using your GI Bill and you're a full-time student, you can use that housing allowance as income towards or to get credit,
So
like
it's-
qualified for the VA loan. That's incredible.
So instead of you renting,
Yeah,
You
I
could've bought a
could
house.
have bought a house.
Yeah, I go back and forth on that. Honestly, man, my advice to people when they're in school, if you don't know where you're going to sell
Yeah.
or you don't know what your income's going to look like, you shouldn't do it.
No, I mean, it's for me right now being a single person,
Sure.
it's not a great idea to obviously buy a house. But for people who get out of the military with families and they're looking to
Different.
use the
Right.
ITI bill.
Right. Yeah, that would make a little more sense.
The other question I actually had was, are these like normal 15, 30-year loans?
Yeah, so they're either 30 or 15. The majority, I don't know that I've ever done a VA 15, but they're available and the rates are good. But most VA loans wind up being 30 or fixed. We do have the 15 if someone wanted that, of course, but most of them tend to be 30. They're standard loans, 30, 15. There's an ARM product, never done one. I think it's out there.
Is there any time where it might be better to not use the VA loan, depending on what you qualify for?
Yeah, the first one I could think of would be if the home wasn't in great shape. It's tough to get a VA loan on a place that needs work.
Okay.
Really?
The appraisals are much more nitpicky. So like some certain cosmetic things would get flagged on a VA that wouldn't get flagged on a conventional.
That's interesting.
If you're putting down a big down payment, if the rates were the same, you're going to have an easier time getting approved by the seller with a conventional mortgage. And if the rates are the same, there's no real benefit for the VA.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like the majority of VA loans that I see are low down payment, 10% down, 5% down, no money down. You wouldn't use it generally if the rates were the same, then you can go conventional.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Appraisals for the VA go through the VA. The VA orders it. The lender orders it through the VA portal.
Yeah.
The VA assigns a local appraiser.
Yeah.
Right? And
So
so
I do
a little
remember
bit
now.
different
Yes,
process.
Yes.
But everything they do is to protect the veteran.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're a little more nitpicky than say a conventional loan because they want to make sure it's
They want to make sure you're getting it.
Yeah.
and I've had situations where things have been flagged on a VA appraisal, but the veteran very much wanted the house and called the VA, explained the situation. There was nothing major on the appraisal. It was, some wood rot, maybe some peeling paint or whatever. They called the VA and they said, this is how much the damages are going to be and we need to close this, and they allowed it to happen.
That's
That's really
interesting.
cool.
So yeah, I think it's a great loan. Hopefully this helped you understand a lot more of it.
Did
Hopefully
you learn
everyone out
about
there.
adulting?
I definitely learned
Yeah,
a little
man.
bit more about
Slow
how
down.
to
Yeah. When it comes time, it's a great product. Take your time.
Yeah. No, I said to him, "What do you want to learn?" He's like, "How do I adult?" Okay.
I can give you advice with this only.
Uncle Seth says, "Can I refinance a VA loan if the rates drop?"
Yes.
Yes.
There's a streamlined process. It's
There's
called
a
a
streamlined
VA streamline. There's no credit, income, or appraisal needed. It's called a VA. It's really a IRRL, interest rate reduction loan. So if the rates are lower, yes. Where's he live?
Wellington.
Rates would have to drop a lot for it to make sense because you got to pay closing costs again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if the
Next
rate-
one, we're going to talk about refinancing because that confuses me. Or like taking out second mortgages. I never understood that.
I will help you.
Okay. Next time on Cross Country Conversations.
Yeah, but yes, you can absolutely refinance a VA loan.
But you said that VA loan interest rates are usually a little bit lower.
Yes.
But do they still go on are they still based off of the Fed and
Yeah.
everybody
They
else?
just tend to be a little less expensive. VA
So-
loans tend to be a little bit less expensive than any other mortgage.
If we see normal interest rates rising a little bit in the next few
Yeah,
years,
loans are
VA
going
loans
up
are
too.
going to go up a little bit too.
Yep.
Interesting.
They just start off a little lower.
Interesting. Any other rumors you want to squash?
Honestly, at my age, when I was in the military, I didn't hear a lot because I wasn't asking a lot
Oh,
about
yeah.
the VA loans. Sure.
Yeah, that's
Well,
You're just traveling the world.
anyone you know in the military needs help, we'll definitely love
Yeah,
to
or
help
your
them.
friends.
And,
Yeah, no, if anybody is watching right now and wants to get in contact with me, I can get you in contact with the right people. It would be awesome.
Listen, there's one more question. It's your last question. If you refinance, will you have to go through inspection, appraisal, everything again? Only closing costs?
it's a streamlined process.
Streamlined process, so you
So,
don't have to do that.
VA to V, if you're I'm assuming you have a VA loan now. If
Yeah.
you have a VA loan now, to refi into another VA loan is really easy. Where you don't need an appraisal, we don't even look at your credit.
How would you know if the interest rate dropped?
I would look at his original loan and see if the rates are better.
We could do
now.
that. We could definitely talk to Craig and see if like
Or we have to
what
wait.
you had last year was different from what he has.
I mean, rates were lower last year. It just depends on what type of loan you got. We can take a look at it, look at the cost, and see if it makes sense. That's easy to figure out. Call me Uncle Seth.
Number it's on the other background that we have. Good for you.
All right, guys.
So I think that's
No, I
it.
think that was everything.
Thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming here and talking to me about the VA loan. That's awesome.
It was fun having my brother here for the day.
Awesome. Thanks
Not
for
for an
listening.
hour. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. We'll be talking about refinancing and taking out second loans, and that's that. Bye. And oh my gosh, I don't want to go. And